Well, let's stay with our focus on issues of public transport. Across the country, we've been looking at the state of public transportation, and let's bring into that conversation the taxi industry. This is one of the oldest industries in the country, and one of the current issues affecting both operators and commuters is the issue of fares being impacted by continuously rising fuel prices. Let's welcome Thabiso Molelekwa, who is Santaco spokesperson, and joining us into this conversation. So there's been a bit of confusion, Mr. Molelekwa, about whether or not, subsequent to the record price hike for fuel, which saw fuel, some grades reaching 17 rand a litre, whether or not or how soon we will be seeing fare increases in as far as the taxi industry is concerned. It seems to me that it's fait accompli that we will be seeing increases. It's perhaps a matter of just when commuters will see increases. Am I right in that assumption?
Definitely, Tulas, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers. Indeed, there will be taxi fare increases, which only happen annually in June, when the leadership of Santaco will be reviewing taxi fares countrywide. Given, as you have rightfully indicated, given the petrol increase, and also when you look at the past 6 months, our petrol, has been increasing, you'd realize that a taxi fare increase is unavoidable.
And how significant are we expecting these increases to be? Because in addition to, the fuel levy that came into effect on the 1st of April, and the issues around, international crude oil prices, you as an industry are also saying that you've been dealing with the fallout from the lockdown and how your industry was affected by all of that. And the suggestion is that this may see the increases this year being much more significant.
Well, we, for a bit of time, will be faced with a situation of balancing between the pressure that we face as a business, as well as, the challenges that commuters are facing, given that, some of them have lost jobs, some of them, their salaries have been cut, and so on and so forth. And the industry, by far and large, caters for the poorest of the poor. But I must indicate to us that the industry has been one of the most hardest hit industries since the beginning of COVID. In the first 21 days of hard lockdown last year, the taxi industry was losing about 70 million rands per day. And we have not recovered from that. And we are not to recover anytime soon. We are talking about long distance operations that have been closed as a result of inter-provincial restrictions. We are talking about cross-border operations that have been closed. You look at the recent Easter that we just had. The long distance travelers did not even meet half of the number that we had expected. So long distance operators enjoyed about 38% of the turnover. So it is a loss. And you are talking about people who are behind with their installments owing to lack of work as a result of COVID restrictions. You are talking about people who've entered into arrangements with banks. They are still busy with that. So there are a whole host of challenges that the industry faces that it needs to rise above.
So while we're talking about our focus on public transportation, one of the key elements is integration, that if you're using one mode of public transport, you should be able to swiftly switch to the next mode of transportation for ease of traveling. In terms of that, where do you see yourselves as a taxi industry, given some of the, the challenges that you continue to face around issues of regulation, as well as issues to do with violence, for example, in your sector? What role do you see for yourselves within the conversation of integration?
Maybe let me indicate that coming from the National Taxi Lekgotla that was led by the Minister of Transport, Ntate Fikile Mbalula, there is a joint commitment by both government and the industry to embark on a formalization process that would ultimately lead to regulation and empowerment of the industry. we do embrace integration of public transport services. Our argument has always been you can't integrate services if you don't integrate ownership. In other words, if you integrate taxis with buses, and you do not discuss or address the issue of ownership, buses will continue to own or enjoy the larger part of what they've been benefiting from prior to integration. So you need to ensure that both the services and ownership do tally, and this is what we have said. Even with the the issue around fare collection system, that can seamlessly be used in between the transport modes. We are in discussions with the Department of Transport. We are playing our part. We are contributing our own ideas. Our entity that is charged with that responsibility is hard at work to ensure that we have got a fare collection system.
Did I hear you correctly? Did I hear you correctly, Mr. Molelekwa, using the word formalization? How much buy-in is there within your industry when we all know that programs such as the taxi recap program, for example, ran into many, many difficulties, and in some instances, the introduction of alternatives to the taxi industry, for instance, the bus rapid transit systems in various cities usually meets some resistance from your sector, from your industry. And here you are talking formalization. What are some of these elements of formalization that you have accepted as an industry?
We have accepted, you did hear me correctly, Tulas. We have accepted formalization in totality. But here is the issue, Tulas, that maybe we need to bring you up to speed with. You see, issues around BRT and other related initiatives that were started by government. The problem has always been government putting the cart before the horse. And I can also refer to the taxi recapitalization program. You can't introduce a system on routes that have been made lucrative by the industry without any form of subsidization from government, and want the industry to play a passive role in that regard. It is not fair business practice. It is discriminatory, and this has always been our argument. In fact, then Minister Jeff Radebe did commit that government would ensure that the industry becomes what they would call the nucleus of the taxi industry then in the BRT systems. 10 years later, we still have an industry that is a passive participant in all the BRT systems in the country. And this is why at the Taxi Lekgotla, we have requested government to review the whole BRT system in the country. And we are happy that even the Competition Commission agrees with that notion. So when I talk formalization, we are talking, registration of companies, we are talking compliance with all regulations or pieces of legislation affecting our business. The industry is ready. What we are saying is that the rules of the game must be fair and they must be predefined so that we are able to know what is it we are getting into.
All right, thank you for that. That's Thabiso Molelekwa there from Santaco. You heard it for yourself there. He says the industry, the taxi industry, is committed to formalization, and that will include things such as registration of companies and accepting all rules and policies and procedures. They just want fairness in the whole process there. Our focus on public transport continues here on eNCA.